Today we are going to make a sponge cake. Alright, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. This recipe, again, you need to follow the instructions precisely. Cakes are unforgiving. And so the recipe starts with us sifting the flour. And in the past I've showed you that you can just do the same process with a wire whip attachment, and you can. If you don't have a sifter at home, you don't need to go buy one. But today I thought I would show you the sifter in case you've never seen one. They come in different styles. This one's pretty basic, okay? This is what a lot of them look like. And it looks like a screen, like at your home, like the screen you have in your window at home. And what you do is you put your flour or whatever ingredients need to be sifted. Sometimes you should usually sift powdered sugar before you make an icing, and that will help your icing be very, very light and airy with no lumps at all. So you just do this, and if you look in here, you can see how light that looks compared to in here. All right, because it just forces air between all the little particles of flour and gets out all the lumps. And even then, it doesn't look like there's any lumps, but then when you put it through a screen, you do see that there were lumps. Just try to force this a little bit more down. Okay, now to clean these, you just wipe them off, and you can kind of, any extra, you do not want to run sifters through a sanitizer or a dishwasher because they rust. Okay, so there is our flour, and then the ingredients say, and this is where a lot of students mess up this recipe. The ingredients say, the instructions, whisk with a 1/4 cup of sugar. Well, when you pre-measured this in class yesterday, or whenever you did, if it probably yesterday, the recipe says to measure a cup of sugar. So the students just open the bag, dump it in, and then don't read that it was only supposed to be a 1/4 cup of sugar in this cake. So it's very important that either when you're doing your mise en place that you separate your sugar and put it in 3 different bags because you need it in 3 different places, or you remember to measure as you go. So I need a 1/4 cup of sugar. So I'm going to measure that and put that in here. And I'm just going to incorporate these together using the wire whip. Okay. So we're just going to set this aside because we need that later. Next, it tells us to get another 1/4 cup of sugar. And this is where students go, what do you mean another 1/4 cup of sugar? I put the sugar in the bowl, all right? Well, again, only a 1/4 cup was supposed to be in there. So students just run to the canister and get another 1/4 cup of sugar, and they don't tell anybody that all their sugar's in there, and then they ask me, what went wrong with our cakes? Like they don't know. So here's our other 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm going to set this aside, because this is getting beaten with our egg whites when we make an egg white foam. So in here is our last 1/2 cup of sugar. And this is going in here with our egg yolks. And I've already put the egg yolks in there. This recipe requires no measuring, or no math, no math, which is nice. So that's 6 egg yolks. All right. And we are supposed to beat these on high with a paddle attachment, and these have to beat for 5 minutes, and you might be saying that's crazy. The reason is you want the sugar fully dissolved in those egg yolks, and you want a lot of air incorporated into this. So I'm going to turn this on, and we will be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes is up, and this is what your egg should look like. I did not add anything else to this. And most students, 5 minutes seems like a lifetime, so after 1 or 2 minutes, they call it a day and move forward. And their eggs have not gotten to this ribbony, yellow, thick stage. This, again, is just that egg yolks and sugar, that 1/4 cup of sugar. So this is what it's supposed to look like. So now at this point, we're going to turn it back on, and we're going to add our water, which I've combined it already, our water, our vanilla, and our lemon zest. And again, that's nice and quick. All right, so we're going to lift this up And get as much batter off this as you can, because that's, you know, pieces of cake. Now, this next step, again, doesn't settle well with students, so they just kind of blow it off, but it's really important. We're going to sift this on top of this, and we're not going to stir. And that messes with people because they think they need to stir it, but we're not stirring. We will, but not yet. And we're not supposed to do it yet. If you do not have a sifter at home, what I suggest is you take handfuls and very lightly sprinkle it over here. All right, but since we have sifters here, we're going to go ahead and do it. And as you see, some of it's going to spill over, which is fine because that's just getting sprinkled. And we're going to sift this over the top. And again, this is going to keep this cake very nice, light, and airy, all right? So, don't stir, just leave it be, all right? Okay, going to bowl number 3 for this cake. So you can see this recipe makes a lot of dirty dishes, all right? We are going to go to bowl number 3 and a wire whip attachment because we are going to beat our egg whites into a foam. All right, so here are our 6 egg whites. Now, we did not demonstrate how to separate all of these. Your teacher will have gone over that with you. Or you may have done that in a previous lab. But again, there can be no egg yolk at all. Not one tiny dot of egg yolk can be in these. If there are, that means there's fat in here because egg yolks are almost all fat. And fat inhibits or stops the formation of air. It will not allow this egg white foam to beat into the stage that we need it because the fat will inhibit it. One tiny, tiny pin dot will inhibit it. All right, so if your egg whites do not beat up like they're supposed to the egg white foam, I can tell you right now, you got egg yolk in it. All right, so the first thing you do is you beat it to the foamy stage, which means it should look like bubble bath. So you can put your mixer on high, and it'll take about 1.5 minutes. So we'll be back when they look like bubble bath. Okay, our egg whites look like bubble bath. So when they look like that, you want to add the cream of tartar, which is a white powder. It's in the spice section, you know, at the grocery store or at your kitchen at home probably. And cream of tartar comes from grapes, actually. It's tartaric acid. And cream of tartar is a stabilizing agent which keeps these bubbles from breaking so they don't pop as, you know, they'll hold their shape, their form. So I'm going to turn this on high, and it's going to take a couple of minutes and we're going to beat this until we get soft peaks. And soft peaks means that when you pick this up, it'll make like you've seen ice cream cones, soft serve, how they have the little curly Q at top. Well, we want the little curly Q to fold over. All right, so we'll come back. You're going to beat this on high speed, and we'll be back when we have soft peaks. Okay, we are back, and we have beat this to soft peaks. And if you can see, I'm trying to see, on the rubber scraper, it falls over. It doesn't stand straight up. All right, so when you get to that point, all right, and it's just a little soft, like you can see there, it's folding over. Now it's time to add our sugar. Remember the 1/4 cup of sugar we set aside at the very beginning? We're going to add that sugar to our meringue or our egg white foam. Now, if you add all the sugar at once, it's going to break a whole bunch of bubbles, and you don't want to break any bubbles. So we're going to add it slowly, and then we're going to beat this until we have, at high speed, until we have stiff peaks, and that's when it stands straight up, all right, like the top of a mountain. So I'm going to turn this on and lightly sprinkle the sugar in here. And we'll be back when we have stiff peaks. It'll turn a bright white, shiny, and they'll stand up. Okay, that only took about 40 seconds, so it's very quick. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see in the video, but this is pretty shiny. I'm going to pick this up, and it stood straight up. That little peak right there. Okay, they're standing straight up, so that's how you know that you are at the stage of egg whites you need to be. And it amazes students that this started out as raw egg whites, okay, but that is the power of air. Okay. All right, now, back to our flour that was sifted on top and we never stirred it in. Okay, I know it's messing with some of you guys. We're going to take a little bit of egg white, that's it, and now we're going to stir this in gently. Don't go crazy, but you can use a stirring motion. Okay. Okay. Okay, and again, gently, gently stir until all of this has been pretty well incorporated or mixed. And I'm making sure that there's no flour stuck on the bottom of this pan or bowl. All right, now what we're going to do, we're going to fold in the rest of these egg whites. So fold, in my mind, means very, very gently stir, like you're babying it. Because remember, we don't want these air bubbles to break. All right, so we're going to get all of this out. Now, if you remember, as we made this cake, there was no baking soda, there was no baking powder, and there's no yeast because it's not a yeast bread. So there's no leavening agent in here. So many students would say, well, is this cake going to be like a hockey puck? You know, because there's no leavening agent, and leavening makes it rise. Well, all of the air bubbles in this foam are going to get larger as they get hotter. So as they expand, it's like you have all these tiny little balloons in your cake batter, and it's going to make your cake batter rise. So to fold this, we're going to go across the bottom and over the top. Across the bottom and over the top. And when I mean baby this, very gently stir so that we preserve all these air bubbles in the foam. If you break them, your cake will be a hockey puck. A really thick yellow hockey puck. Okay? Now, when you get done folding this in, there may be some streaks of white, which is fine. You just don't want any large blobs or sections of yellow and no large sections of white. All right? So we will be back when this is all mixed. Our batter is it's pretty evenly mixed. Occasionally you'll see a little streak of white, but that is perfectly fine. I made sure to scrape the bottom so that there's no big chunks of yellow batter at the bottom that have not been mixed with the egg whites. So the next is we need to get a tube pan. And a tube pan is a cake pan with a tube in the middle. Okay, big tube. And what's going to happen is we're going to pour this batter in here. And we don't grease tube pans because this batter has no leavening agent. So all that's going to happen are all those air bubbles are going to grow. And as they grow, they're going to climb up the side of the pan and stick to it. And if we grease it, they just fall down. They can't stick to the side and continue to grow. Okay, so it's going to kind of climb up the sides of the pan. And the tube in the middle is because this cake is so wide and so high that it won't cook in the middle. So we put another source of heat in the middle of the cake, because this is going to get hot, just like the outside of the cake. So this gets hot, and the cake cooks from the middle out and from the outside in. All right? So when you pour this in here, try to do it neatly. I'm going to pour it. This is a thicker batter, but I'm just going to sit and pour here. This batter does not run. So I'm going to be a little strategic in trying to get it around in the pan. And I will even that up. Now there's a lot of batter left in this bowl, and that is multiple pieces of cake. So I will get them in here. Alright, almost done here. Alright, I'll do one final scraping of my rubber scraper. Alright. Now, If you spill any, and I just have a little bit here, but sometimes, you know, you miss and you get it all over the place, you want to wipe these down because they will burn in a heartbeat. All right, and then your cake will have a burnt taste to it. And since there's a lot, we were plopping this in here, you want to make sure there's no large air bubbles in your cake. So I'm taking a straight edge. You could use a butter knife, the handle of a fork, it doesn't really matter, something that can slice through this and break any really large air bubbles that might have happened as you were plopping the dough in here, because this dough doesn't really run. Okay. All right, just gonna clean up my edges. Okay. All right, this is going to bake for about a half hour, and you will be gone from class by then, so your teacher will take it out of the oven for you. These cakes have to cool upside down, because if we take it out of the oven, it's hot, right? Well, there's no leavening agent or anything to form that bridge, so the cake, as it cools, drops down. Well, we don't want it to drop down. We want it to stay tall. So we're going to flip it upside down after it's baked. It's stuck to the bottom, so it'll hang upside down and cool that way. And once it's cool, then it kind of locks all of the structure of the cake in place, and you keep your volume. Then you flip it back over and serve it. All right? So tomorrow we will show you how to get the cake out of the pan, and we will make our whipped cream frosting. Sponge cake is done, and it has cooled upside down, so when you flip it over, it still has its nice height. So to get this out of this pan, you take just a regular butter knife and go around the perimeter of the cake, and then you also go around the middle. Now, it's still stuck to the bottom of the pan, so you flip it over, and you just slide a knife in here and twist, and that'll lift right off. Okay. And now, since this pan is so tall, I'm going to keep my hand kind of under here to catch the cake as it falls. Oh, maybe this might work a little better. There it comes. There we go. All right, and there's your cake. Now, you will be cutting this for your classmates, so you're probably going to need about 24 pieces. You can count the number of people. And you always want to use a bread knife to cut because of the serrated edge, and you saw right through. Now, if you have 24 people, you can cut the cake in half like this, and then in half this way. And then if you cut 6 pieces from each of these, you would have 24. But that's hard to cut 6 here. So my suggestion is to cut 3. And then once they're flipped over, you can cut them in half. All right? So for presentation, I'm just going to leave it like this and put them like this. And then this recipe has us making homemade whipped cream. So I would like to also show you how to make real whipped cream, not the kind you just get. They do sell real whipped cream at the store, but Panera uses real whipped cream. It's in that can with the aerator, all right, to add the air. So I will be right back. We're back. Now, the trick to making this is you want your bowl and your wire whip attachment very cold. So when you come into class this day, if you're making this cake, the very, very first thing you should do before you even sit down, before you tie back your hair, anything, is grab a bowl and a wire whip attachment and put it in the fridge. That way it can get nice and cold while you're washing your hands, you know, doing all of that stuff. You're going to put all of your ingredients in here. And this is the whipping cream and vanilla. Okay. Not milk, it's heavy cream. It has a lot of fat in there. Okay. And your sugar. And all of these ingredients should be cold, and they would be because they were in the fridge, you know, overnight while you went home. And you just beat this on high. And you're going to beat it until you have stiff peaks, which means the peaks stand up straight when you pull the attachment out. So we'll be back in a few minutes to here and just see where we're at. And it looks very good, in fact. I'm going to take this off and show you. If I take this and pull up, it stands straight up. Right, that one fell over a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give it about 20 more seconds, that's it. I would just like it to be a little thicker because I want to put it in a frosting bag for you. There we go. All right, real whipped cream. All right, so if you want for presentation, I like star tubes for this, so I got a very large star tube, and I got my disposable frosting bag and just cut a little off so I could drop the tube in. Now, so you don't get whipped cream all over the place, you're going to fold this down. All right, so you don't have to reach your elbow into a frosting bag, okay, to fill it. I'm just going to drop this in here. All right. Some of that might come out here at the bottom yet. It started dripping. And so I'm going to twist the top of this. Now this is whipped cream, so it's going to be very easy. I'm just going to get it started, and then you could come over here, and this may not be thick enough. There it goes. Yep, there it is. You could do that. You know, you could also just come to this corner and make a great big dollop. There's many different things you could do. All right? Just don't decorate the whole plate with whipped cream because then it's overkill. Keep it simple. You could also take this now and drizzle a little bit of chocolate or strawberry sauce over it as well. All right? Enjoy.